This is Tools for Nomads. Brought to you by Top Drawer. As creative professionals, we know the nomadic lifestyle is as much a mindset as it is a way of being. Visit topdrawershop.com or visit one of their dozen-plus meticulously outfitted shops in San Francisco, Los Angeles, Boston, Berkeley, Chicago, and Tokyo. topdrawershop.com. I'm Tom Pollard. I've traveled the world in search of adventure. Since 2001, I've been a member of the Explorers Club. I'm a filmmaker, mountaineer, even a sailor. I've been to the top of Everest and helped build and sailed a ship made of 2.5 million reeds from Chile to Easter Island. Almost got eaten by a mako shark. Filmed with orcas, elk, bear. From five-star hotels to the cold, cold ground, I've visited a lot of cool places over the years, but there's a whole lot of places on the globe I've yet to experience.
Don't want no trouble, just left behind what once was mine.
For me, nothing really conjures up life on the road and all the images that come along with it like the life of a touring musician. It's not all first-class travel and suites in posh hotels. Plain facts is that the music you hear pouring out of small bars and cafes at night come from people like you and me. Passionate, driven, inspired, committed almost beyond reason. They drive 8 hours from gig to gig, sleep in modest hotels, if they're lucky, set up their own drum kits and amplifiers, collect their cash payment after the gig, get up the next morning, do it all over again in another city or town far away. That music you hear right now, that's the music of a bona fide troubadour. Seth Walker, touring on and off since the 90s. Seth is an American blues, guitarist, singer, songwriter, author, poet, painter. He's followed the song of his soul. Grew up on a commune in North Carolina where he learned classical guitar from Quaker parents, using the Suzuki method, a method of teaching and learning music that starts at a very young age, where a student learns by using the ear, much like he or she would learn to speak their native language. Suzuki himself believed that this style of learning helped foster good moral character. If true, Seth is the poster child. He has 10 albums out, wrote his own book during COVID called Your Van is on Fire. It's filled with poetry and art, anecdotes from life at home and on the road, like playing with Alan Toussaint, Willie Nelson. Some of the stories are hilarious, almost self-deprecating. Seth has followed his muse and the music his whole life. Lived in Austin, New Orleans, Nashville. He wanted to eat, sleep, drink, and breathe every single note he could possibly hear until it flowed through him. You know that kind of musician when you hear one. I caught up with Seth from his hotel room in Chicago, where he was playing a show that night. Next morning, he was off to Minnesota, then Wisconsin, then you get the idea. Here's my interview with Seth Walker. You're on the road. Tell me about your tour and what's going on, and what are you premiering any music that nobody's heard before, and how's it feel out there?
Yeah, it feels good. This is the first official van tour, I can safely say. We have done a handful of shows in the last year. Of course, we've done some online things through the pandemic. And we would, venture off and do a few things, maybe outside or a couple indoor things as things are starting to open back up. But yeah, this is the first run that we have done. We started in Des Moines and over to Omaha, and then I'm in Chicago right now. So it's interesting, I'm trying to ease back into this. my spirit is a little is has as all of us have shifted a little bit. Um,
No, I totally get that. And I think before the pandemic, you had been just going, going, going. And I think you said you felt like a hamster, a flaming hamster on a wheel, or a wheel, a
yeah.
flaming wheel, when you were a hamster spinning on it about to crash and burn. And then you got some time to reflect. You wrote a book. And now you're kind of back doing what you've been doing for 25 years on the road.
I guess I'm through that contrast. Um, I've I guess I didn't realize maybe how unconsciously anxious the whole thing can be. You're driving around and you're scrambling and you're working on songs and you're working on records and you're on we're on a stage, for God's sakes. It's like a stage and people are staring at you, or it's like this, all beautiful things, but it's also, it's not, I wouldn't call it the most zen place to be. Just the whole dynamic of the road is what I mean. And so as I um, get back into this, I'm just really realizing that I just want to bring my temperature down, my nervous system down, and not try to control so much of it, and just be a part of something bigger than what's going on that stage. I mean, that's the ultimate goal in any venture, I believe. Sometimes it takes a pandemic maybe to to remind you of things like that.
Having done not as many, nearly as many, a fraction of the, if you will, performances on stage, and doing presentations to audiences, some very small group of school kids in a classroom, up to 1,500 people in an auditorium. It's in, the nervous energy before dissipates the minute I get up there on stage, but when it's over, I realize how much I'm just putting out there. And it wasn't just in that hour and a half or whatever. It was all that nervous energy leading up to it. And then when it's over, it's almost like I can almost hear buzzing in the silence, and it takes a lot to come down from it. And
Your nervous system is constantly engaged with this, as it should be, if you're putting everything into it, as I'm sure you do when you do your talks and uh, that's what makes you great. But it's, whew, it's we gotta find that balance. It's easy to get off balance in that.
yeah, and you want so badly the audience to love you. And do you ever, what's it like? Because when I do a talk, I guess, I look out there and they're, if I see someone who's not responding or nodding, I'll hone in on them and get them to react somehow. And it's part of my, I don't know if it's a neurotic type thing from my childhood or whatever, but I want so badly for people to engage. And I know it's nonsense because you can't do that. But as a musician, especially when you're trying out a new song or a new vibe, a band is out there, you look out there and you're like, man, like we gotta grab them with this next cut. Are you feeling the audience, like, or do you just go with your set?
That's something that I have suffered with in the past. It's something I'm actually trying. I was actually reading. We might have talked about this Willie Nelson book on our last talk. The Tao of Willie.
Brand new book.
Oh my gosh, he's just no. This is an older book.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I know he just came out with something new, but yeah, he's a sage, and he was mentioning that what he does is he looks out and finds the not the person that's that's flatlined. He finds the one person that's smiling, and then he sings to that person only. And then the next thing he knows, everyone's in the pocket with him.
Huh.
But
Yeah.
it is easy to fall into these traps because it's nervous energy. It's our insecurities or that creep in. But as I'm going forward here, I'm really just man. I can't. All I can control is what I'm doing. And how I am relating to the muse and to the music and to myself. And that is, if I try to do anything outside of that, then I'm going to be in trouble.
Maybe with the new perspective coming out of this whole year that we were put on ice, so to speak, and I know how busy you were writing your book and writing music. Do you think that maybe there'll be a different perspective looking back? Because, as you said, going into it, you were that, the flaming wheel, the hamster spinning around about to crash and burn. Do you think that you're going to know when you're hitting that point and just go, okay, how I pull back here and avert that from happening is whether it's taking solace in a bandmate that you're particularly close with or a phone call or I don't know, or a meditation session.
Meditation. I mean, my antenna is definitely up, because I want to be able to do this for a long time. I don't want to burn out. This is my life. This is very important, extremely important to me. Um, so mindfulness is number one with I believe with all of us. Meditation definitely helps. I've been doing meditations in the morning and trying to exercise in the morning, trying to get my because I'm not spring chicken anymore. So like the road can be tough. 8 hours in the van can get you wonky, man. Get you sideways quick. So um, all all things to pay to further your point, things to pay attention to when it does start to get wobbly. Um, check yourself.
Seth, so when you're on the road, how do you how do you work? What's your habit, or do you, or is it just stage, or do you have like a go-to place, or is it in your mind or in your hotel room or in the 8-hour drive that you can actually, if you will, work whatever, creating new music, is or does that happen on the road, or do you kind of put that stuff aside?
Are you meaning like songwriting or anything?
Poetry. Well, you're a poet, you're an artist. I would imagine you didn't bring your paint kit with you to do painting or your pastels. Maybe you did, but you've got guitars with you, so perhaps.
Yeah, I mean, I don't write a lot on the road. It's not been something I've ever really done. I always write at home. That being said, I probably have a bunch of voice memos of me driving and getting a melody in my head, and yeah. So maybe I'm wrong on that. I actually the driving is like a meditation to me. I don't. I do listen to music, but a lot of times, man, I just listen. I don't. I don't. I just open road, quiet. That's where, I mean, obviously in the quiet is where things can come to you.
Yeah.
So, but I do have a little journal. I'll scribble some stuff down every now and then. But I wouldn't say it's the most creative environment to be in as far as coming up with new stuff. You know, it's just not for me. Some people, I'm sure, obviously are different than me, but I'm usually it's a scramble. I mean, we're it's one nighters. I mean, it's never 2 nights in a row, hardly ever.
Right, right. Yeah. So, So what then your work at home then, because I've talked to you both times we've spoken. Well, we've talked on the phone before, I believe, and texted each other and things. But at home, so what do you do at home then when you're writing? Does it happen, or are you like, this is my corner, or you surround yourself with your guitars, or like what's your vibe there?
Oh man, well, most of the time it comes in the morning. Usually, I don't write a lot at night. I don't know, just all of the all the monkeys in my brain are piled on me by the end of the day.
Yeah.
So I like to get at it in the morning when I'm fresh. It usually I do have this back little room that is cool, man, and that's where I have my paints and stuff, and I'll sit back there and meditate a little bit and do my writing, and then I have in my front room is where I have my recording gear and my guitars, etc. And that's where I just sit and you know just a lot of times, man, it's a noodle fest, and then all of a sudden I'll just kind of catch on to something, and maybe a little through mumble. A lot of times I'll mumble, just mumbling words, trying to get a melody going, and sometimes a mumble will turn into a whole idea, a whole song. That's happened many times. Mumbles.
Mumbles are underrated. Serious.
Yeah, you ever heard Clark Terry,
Yeah.
the trumpet player? He does that thing, mumbles. You ever heard that?
I'm gonna have to pull that up.
Yeah, he's improvising like. It's so good. And every now and then a word will pop out, and that's kind of what happens with songwriting for me. I mean, it varies. Sometimes I'll get a turn of a phrase, or that like, oh, like the future ain't what it used to be. I'm like, oh well, that we should make a song out of that. Go.
Feels so good, I feel like jumping for joy. Feels so good, I feel like jumping for joy. Spirit moving through me, Lord, makes me wanna sing.
That's good stuff, right? Well, I think I might have said this to you last time we talked. I think it's like either Tom Morello or Gary Clark Jr. or something, but very, successful musicians. I think they record their entire jam session. So if they jam for 5 hours, then they'll if in the middle of it they go, "Oh my gosh, that was insane!" Like go roll the back, then boom. But just in case something happens.
Yeah, that's wise. I don't do that near enough. That's good. Sometimes I will. That being said, sometimes, for instance, on my Are You Open album, I don't know if we spoke of this, but I would record on my phone sometimes a sound check, or just like a jam. I guess I do that sometimes at my house too. I just record a jam. And this one instance, I had recorded this sound check, and I remember listening back to it, going, "Wow, that's a cool groove, man." And I had written this poem called "Inside" that I wrote, inspired by a piece of art that I bought in Havana, Cuba. And I ended up just kind of singing these words over top of this iPhone recording loop, and the song kind of sprouted out of that. We actually ended up using the iPhone voice memo on the album as a loop. So you never, that being said, you never know when. I mean, the muse is a mysterious one. You never know where an idea will pop up.
never find shelter. You never find your way back home. You never find yourself now. When you're that far gone, that far gone.
You know, I'm constantly in that process of trying to find my creativity, and when I need it sometimes, or if there's a deadline, let's put it that way. If there's a deadline, I'm my entire brain and soul feels vacant, you know, like, oh my gosh, deadline, and the deadline ticking closer, you know, so then I start waking up more often in the middle of the night, like thinking.
That's the worst.
It is, but
When you're trying to summon it, when you're trying to summon that stuff, it's usually it goes far, far, far away from you.
it is. So what is it for you? Are you, you know, we've already talked about it a little today, but is it a book? Is it, what, like, and not even necessarily on the road, but what spurs you to find your creativity? Are you a reader? Do you have a, you know, MP3 player going constantly?
Yeah, it's a mixture of those things. I mean, I do read. I'm actually reading this uh, Barbara Kingsolver book. It's about her basically dropping off the grid and living in a self-sustainable farm for a year. And so this is what we
Wow.
talk about, it kind of breaks down not only her journey with that, but the whole food industry and all these kinds of things. Which is it's been good to read it because, you know, I'm trying to get back, you know, to more of a natural place, you know, and being in nature. You know, that's one thing I've really enjoyed about, talk about inspiration. When I'm walking and hiking in the Blue Ridge Mountains where I'm living now, that is where inspiration comes from
Mm.
for me these days. Um,
You told me about Elizabeth Gilbert, the writer, and something about meeting your genius or something,
yeah. Hmm.
and that is very interesting. Like that's kind of that idea of like, how do you tap into that prolific genius that really exists in all of us? It's just most people are so caught up in the day-to-day race of just saying, okay, the first of the month is coming up, man, I got rent, the car payments on the 10th, and that crap, man, will just bog you right down. It's unfortunate, but
It will.
and there's your Blue Ridge Mountain. You go out there, that's your church, I guess, right?
That definitely is a cathartic situation. Just being, you know, because we how quickly we forget that we are nature, we are dirt, you know. Um, Now Elizabeth Gilbert, what I loved about what she was talking about was, you know, back. I think she was speaking of like in African ceremonies and things where the spirit would come, you know, you're just a conduit to the spirit, so the spirit will come through you and you emote. And she was saying that the genius was outside of ourselves, it comes through us. And then where we got in trouble is when we started to call people a genius. And when you call someone a genius, you put that on them, that's no good, because then you got all this pressure. You got, hell, I got to be a genius.
Right.
And I love that, just that whole concept, you know, of that we don't own any of this.
Yeah, man, a conduit. We're just passing
We
through,
don't own any of this.
and that genius is we're just the portal.
If we're lucky.
Yeah, yeah. If we get to tap into it, this is the truth, and I start to realize some things that I didn't when I was younger, and one of them is that I start to realize, like, look, I've always done my best when I've been unencumbered with the burden of worrying what the hell other people are going to think of the shit that I turn out.
Oh man, you're speaking my language now, bro. This is good. Yeah, that is such a waste of. It's easy. It's an easy trap to fall into because it's ultimately our insecurities and our little egos, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm the same way. And I get very, um, I grew up in a commune. I don't know if we talked about this last time, but so
Yeah.
I grew up around a lot of different people. So I was very influenced. I always had some, so I would, and I moved to a lot of different places through my life, a lot of different, I lived in, a bunch of different music cities. So you want to be open, so you can sponge influence, but you also don't want to be pulled around by your nose at the same time. You have to find where your center is and not be as so worried and influenced by the outside world. It's a tough balance.
Yeah, fitting into society, trying to be
Steering it,
Normal.
yeah,
Yes.
steering it, yeah.
the minute you put your hands on the steering wheel and try to steer this car or ship, you're screwed because it just doesn't work. Something goes off the rails, and it's kind of letting go. It takes an inherent faith in whatever that genius is up there.
It is the ultimate test. I mean, it is to trust in the benevolence of all of it is, it's definitely a leap,
It is.
into the unknown, and that's can be scary, but can also be extremely wonderful and exciting to not know. The questions are where it's at. I don't want to know the answers. Who wants to know an answer when you got questions? I mean, that's answer's got a period at the end of
it. Way down in the lowlands where I was raised, out past the line, we paved our own way. Red dirt and gravel is all I know, till I made my way where the big trucks moan. Up on the hard road, the hard road. Up on the hard road, I'm lost and never found, and I can't turn this thing around.
So when you're going on the road and you pack up, and you've done it a zillion times, is there what are your go-to things? Like what goes in the bag? And I have to have, like,
honestly, it's funny you asked this because I forgot how to pack a bag. I used to actually I used to never unpack a bag. That way you got what you need.
right.
But anyway, let's see. What do I take? Um, try to travel light, dude. I do bring some books. I do bring, um, gosh, a toothbrush.
You're there, done.
Done.
All of my hair product, gels, pomades, things like that. Um,
That's called a hat.
yeah, I bring my hats.
Yeah.
Try to bring some fruit, and try to. We've got to go buy a cooler. I want to put a cooler in the van so we can try to keep some. It's hard finding good food on the road. You have to. I'd rather just not eat than eat that bull crap.
Yeah.
Um,
So does somebody drive for you, by the way? Do you have a guy, like your tech guy?
oh God, dude, you're. I wish. I appreciate the sentiment. My bass player and I, we switch off, and Tommy drive, my drummer, so we just We do it that way. I have had tour managers that come out in the past, which is really nice to have the help. But we're running lean and mean right now, and it works really good. We keep it simple. Um, yeah.
That's so interesting. I hadn't even thought of that. So, because this is probably the majority of touring musicians on the road, and so you ultimately, I mean, I know you have like management and publicists and stuff, but so you become your own manager on the road. So like going to a gig and whatever the system for tickets or payment is, like that's your job probably, right? That's a lot of extra work.
Yeah, it is a juggling act. Um, and I think, getting back to when we were talking earlier about the anxiousness and the nervousness of this, how this can be, there is a lot of moving parts out on the road. And I think how I, I mean, we get to the gig. Luckily I have a great manager, Kevin, who hooked us up, and he helps with advancing the show. So I know when to get there, blah blah blah. But when you get there, you gotta load it in. You gotta get it sound checked. Each place is a different type of beast as far as the sound goes, and the sound man, uh, and or sound woman, and got to get the merchandise set up. You got to try to find some food that's you fit to eat. Make a set list, and then it's a lot of things. And it used to really stress me out. I'm gonna be honest with you, man. I mean, sometimes I would get just really jacked up by it all. Um, and as I'm going back into this, I'm really I've just got to relax through that, as best I can,
Hmm.
as best I can, and ask for help. My bass player Reese, he helps me with that kind of stuff, and Tommy, and asking for help is a pretty big one.
It's not easy. It's like asking for directions. No, what man ever asked for directions on the road?
Yeah, I mean that's again going back. That's a control thing.
Yeah.
So to relinquish some of that, and in so many ways, it's going to be. I think it's going to be make it a healthier environment for me.
Well, that said, I hate to put you on the spot, but do you have any tips for life on the road? Like, what are your just we might have already covered it, but what would you suggest?
I mean, we have covered it some, but I just wrote a piece actually, but it was asking me about that. I was just kind of outlining further what we talked about as far as just just not trying to control all of these things that are out of your control. Um, the Taoist, bend and you shall be straight kind of stuff. So that's a good one, to further our points we've been talking about. I guess the other one is to actually enjoy the actual enjoy it. I mean, this is a pretty amazing gift to be able to run around and sing my original songs. I don't know how I get away with it. And but when you're in that room with those people, actually be in that room with them. And sometimes when you have all these things going on in your mind, you're thinking about the next song, or you're thinking about this, or how we're going to get there, you forget to actually be in the room and enjoy it.
Mm.
I'm guilty of that a lot. And so that's some advice I can give to myself as well as others.
I know we're having some doubtful times, fearful thoughts haunting our minds. We live with questions every day, wondering how in the world we'll ever find our way. But I want you to know I'm feeling strong, and I know together we can carry on. 'Cause we got this, gonna be alright. We got this, but now
Seth Walker has a book called Your Van is on Fire. It's a wonderful read, funny, insightful stories from life and on the road with art and poetry. I'll put a link to where you can find it in the show notes. More music and tour dates for Seth can also be found at sethwalker.com. Thank you, Kevin Calabro of Calabro Music Media, for helping set up this interview with the real troubadour himself, Seth. In the show notes, I'll also provide a link to my first conversation with Seth from March of 2021 on the Happiness Quotient podcast called The Soul of Seth Walker.
shine right through this shadow of doubt. We got this, gonna be alright. We got this, but now the time.
I'm glad you stopped by. Tools for Nomads is an up-close and personal look into the lives and habits of passionate and creatively prolific people like Seth Walker, who embrace and cherish the nomadic lifestyle. For a look at Top Drawer's quality collection of tools curated from around the world that help you do your best work wherever you are, visit topdrawershop.com or visit one of their dozen-plus meticulously outfitted shops in Boston, Berkeley, Chicago, Tokyo. For a complete listing of their store locations, again, you can go to topdrawershop.com. Thanks for stopping by. We'll see you next time on Tools for Nomads.
Through this shadow of doubt, we got this, gonna be alright. We got this, and now's our time, 'cause nothing's gonna